Moving Iron Podcast is proud to be part of the Global Ag Network. The network is live, so check out globalagnetwork.com for more details and updates. Now on to the show.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 137 with my guest Greg Machinery Pete Peterson. Greg, how you doing today?
Hey, Casey. Doing well. How you doing?
Doing okay, man. All right, well, plenty of stuff to talk about here. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that affects the overall equipment marketplace. And as usual, there's I got an expert on here that can kind of lead us through the goings on here of the last quarter of the year. So, Greg, I hope you're up to it.
Hey, I don't know about the expert. I just have fun doing what I do, and hopefully the data can be insightful for people. But you bet. You lead the way, Casey, and we'll dive in.
All right, sounds good. So let's talk about what happened here in the second quarter and what that looked like. To me, it felt like the overall marketplace was we had some good movement. I don't want to say it was stagnant, but we weren't knocking it out of the park either. But we had some pretty good months in there. So what'd you see happen the second quarter of the year, and how did that affect the overall feel of the marketplace for you?
Well, second quarter 19, I think might be a little bit of a case where we split it. So if you go back to the end of first quarter, end of March, like we do a quarterly, we just call it our Machinery Pete Used Values Index, where we, track everything, and just me trying to relay what's happening with used values. And of course, it's a little challenging to generalize because, you're lumping in what's happening with a 2-year-old tractor and a 15-year-old manure spreader. But generally speaking, first quarter was pretty strong for used values, particularly on good condition equipment, sort of whatever it was. We were seeing auction pricing holding pretty steady, and geographically it was pretty steady too across North America. So we weren't seeing early in the year any little spots really that were noticeable or softer hard cash pricing, but when we hit second quarter, started off the same, very strong, I would say, for good condition equipment through April, maybe through the first week of May, which is a little bit unusual historically. I've been tracking these auction prices 30 years now, since 1989, and historically, you get after St. Patrick's Day, and, that's sort of pre-planting in a lot of the Midwest where you get all these regional consignment sales jammed together. And you've already taken out buyers that bought in November, December, January, February. So historically, values sort of drop. Did not really see that end of March, early April, or kind of all of April. Have been getting a little softer here in May. I think it's just a combination of, unfortunately, all the stuff going on right now. And then, but it cuts along the condition line, Casey. So we're still seeing solid demand and pricing. If the used item is in good condition, whether it's 2 years old or 7 or 12, 15, whatever, seems like prices are holding. In some cases, very strong if it's super nice. But conversely, we are seeing slippage on the sort of the mid-range stuff. And geographically, we are getting a little softer down south.
All right. So one thing I watch and I pay attention to is just the volume of auctions that are out there. Mm-hmm. And I try to try to pay attention to that. Not so much is it really for pricing, although that really plays into that a little bit. But I like to see the volume to kind of get a feel for what's happening in the market. So obviously over the last 5 years, we've had several auctions every year. In the second quarter, did you notice a spike in the number of auctions that were out there and the volume of equipment that was on them, or did you pretty much see a status quo?
In April, early May, I saw a jump. There were more auctions. It felt to me like it dragged out longer. These, we always see that up in Canada. April is probably their busiest month. It's probably our March. But there were more sales. There were a lot of kind of both retirement sales, I think maybe some last minute playing there, guys maybe weren't, or maybe they wanted to keep going, but had hope for better conditions, whatever, and kind of last minute threw together an auction retirement sale to kind of preserve equity, that type of thing. And then just the consignment and online sales. I mean, there's a lot of those popping up all over. It feels like a lot of folks maybe need to move a piece or two just for cash flow. Now we get into this part, the end of May. It's never a super busy time of year, so I'd say a little bit more normal right now here the last 10 days or so.
Yeah. So when you look at the volume of equipment on those auctions that you saw in April and May, how did you feel that volume compared to what you saw maybe this time last year?
Oh, compared to a year ago, the volume of equipment, I would say, I guess, would be fairly steady. I mean, to me, the number of auctions has been elevated since, I think, July of 15 is when we saw this big spike. At that point, we were a little over 2 years into the different reality, lower commodity prices, and it just took a while. Again, for the farmers, a lot of them are older, and they're optimists by nature, to be a farmer, and coming off such a good period, sort of like the stock market. When the stock market's been real high for a long time, and then when it does drop, at first people think, oh, it'll come back, just because it's a recency bias, I think they call it. Mm-hmm. But it took a while. But again, the number of auctions has sort of been elevated. I haven't seen, I guess to this point, thankfully, like an onslaught of bank forced auctions. So that's a positive thing. At least it feels like when we talk to our 1,100 auctioneers that we've been dealing with for 30 years, that there's some of that, but more of it is just Joe Farmer deciding, well, he's kind of reading the tea leaves and saying, I think I'll hang it up. And one interesting kind of a data point, I guess you'd call it, is I've been getting, we talk to the farm audience every day, social media and everything that we do, but I'm getting a little bit more outreach now from folks asking, hey, I'm thinking of having a sale. And then they're asking about timing. When do you think would be a good time? And it's also based on what they have. So they're smart. They're trying to, maybe time, but it's difficult to time any market here. And but it's very fluid, Casey. I mean, some days you get a little better news, and other days it's down. But still, if you have good condition equipment, it still looks to me like it's attracting, plenty of demand. And the one thing with the number of auctions that has jumped out to me the last year has been the amount of later model equipment on these farm retirement auctions. And it's partly because I'm just old. I've been doing this 30 years. We never saw that, where you'd have all these farm retirement auctions with 2, 3, 4-year-old stuff, 1-year-old stuff. We just see so much of that these days. And I'm always interested to see how that late model stuff does. And it's, for the most part, if it's good shape, it's been doing pretty well.
Okay, so that's another thing that I've been I've kind of watched evolve over the last 5 years, and that is the when you look at auction value compared to retail value. There for a while, auction value, retail value were so far apart that it was really inconsequential. Like had no bearing on each other, right? Now that's really shrank down now to where there is absolutely a correlation between what auction value brings compared to what a retail value will come out for. So talk about that a little bit and what that evolution has looked like over the last 2 or 3 years on the data that you've tracked.
Well, you're wise to watch the correlation, because to me, that's been the key metric. I've been doing this 30 years now. It was back in 2003. Actually, I hired an employee, and so our website had only been up 3 years then. Social media was still, nobody had ever heard any of that stuff. But I wanted my hands on the dealer advertised price data to compare to the auction data I'd had going back to 89. So I actually hired someone, and I said, here, just type into this private database for us all these advertised prices. And maybe it was stupid, I don't know, but it was really helpful. So I found this correlation. Now again, we're talking generalizing, because the equipment has got so much more specialized these days. the transmission, what options does it have? Oh, planters, my gosh. But exactly like you said, Casey, what I found is the gap between the dealer on the lot ad price and the hard cash auction price on a similar item got really wide back in 14, 15, and then early 16 it started to close a little bit. But since November of 17, so we're over 18 months now, that gap has really tightened. In so many cases, like you're indicating, where if you have a farm auction, I'm sure dealers look at a lot of the prices and go, man, I wish I could get that.
Right. Yeah, I do.
Which to me unlocks, you really need to analyze that, because in great part, what's happening there is let's just say the item was a Deere, 8345R. Okay. And it's got low hours. It's on a farm sale. Pick your spot. It's out by you in Nebraska. It's up by me in Minnesota. Okay. So they advertise it. It's got online bidding, good auction firm. People see it and they go, whoa, look at that 8345. Look at that thing. Got low hours. They go through all the pictures. But what's tied into that is it's either a farm retirement or a state sale. So in essence, you're partly selling the seller and his care for it. Mm-hmm. And so to me, now, again, I don't mean to oversimplify, but if I'm an auctioneer or a dealer, I mean, the goal is the same. You want to maximize and get as much out of every piece that you can. Well, the reality is we have tools now that kind of help tell the story of the owner, the first owner of that piece. So if you guys take something in on trade, it's a low-hour 8345R. I'm going to start shouting, little bits of truth about that owner. In fact, we had a real interesting thing happen. This was about 2 weeks ago on Twitter. So we started doing a for sale by owner because we had so many farmers, call up and they got one item for sale. So now we let them list it in machinerypete.com, and we had this. It was a John Deere 4052R, and I think it had I get that right at $100 on it. And I saw the picture. The guy was in Beersford, Texas, which I think is in the northeast part. I'm not sure, but the pictures were great. But his description, the first line, he said, "Bought this for my wife, and we just didn't use it." And he had a picture. You could see the ranch, the fence behind it, the barn in the background. And I posted it on Twitter. And I said, I didn't even say anything. I just put the link. And people started commenting on the fact that he bought it for his wife and that it's got low hours. And when you let people in with these little truths and insights, in this case, people might say, well, why did that thing have 98 hours on it? What's the scoop? Well, he told you. Said I bought it for my wife, Shirley, and she decided she didn't want to drive it. And the amount of clicks that thing got was off the frickin' chart. It was just unbelievable. So our goal is, help that dude sell it. And for dealers, again, I understand, the incredible complexities of your business in every direction. But again, simple goal, everything we have on the lot, let's sell it for as much as we can. So find ways I'd say things like, when you take something in on trade, a planter, combine, or tractor from a great customer. Now, why they're great, that as a dealer and have that relationship. Well, find a way to say that in the listing to make it different. There might be 900 S670s for sale, right? Mm-hmm. Well, there's only one that came from your guy, Fred, that you've been working with for 42 years. So find a way to say in the listing, we've sold Fred 22 combines, worked with him for 40 years. And farmers notice that stuff, whether it's in an auction listing, a private listing, or a dealer listing. So again, I think that with all the auctions, with all the late model equipment, the reason they sell for at retail price is because of you're kind of buying the owner.
Absolutely. That makes a big difference. We try to tell that story as much as we can. We're trying to, figure that out and how we can best do that. But you're exactly right. You watch those auctions and I'll see pieces sell for, and I like to do that. I watch an auction someplace and I'll go look at the surrounding dealers and see what they have listed to kind of get a barometer of what that marketplace looks like. And
Right.
I've watched several times where a corn head or a tractor or even some combines brought more money than the advertised price that the local dealer had for pretty much the same thing. And that's
Right.
always shocked me in how that works. But like to your point, you're telling the story of who the customer is and what they are, and there's that personal connection, I guess, maybe, or it's a local guy that people respect and know how they treat their equipment. And that goes a long ways, and how you can market a piece of equipment.
Yeah, I think the other thing I hear a lot of dealers talk about it, an old truth in the business, I suppose, but in those situations where it's possible, when you take something in on trade and it's from the right customer, really good operator, whatever, clean shed, whatever, just leave it on. If the guy's amenable to it, if you're going to leave it at his place, and then of course you guys interested in, hey, can I look at that corn head? Well, you send him out to Fred's place, and all he's got to do is turn in the driveway, and he's ready to buy the corn head. So,
right,
because of how neat it is. So, ways to unlock that is, that powerful truth is interesting. I guess the other piece of it then is the auction angle, because that's the thing. You could have two corn heads just as nice sitting on the lot, but the weird thing about an auction, and that goes back centuries, is it creates an event. It creates a pivot point that's actionable. Let's put this for sale. Now, of course, auctions, all kinds of connotations, good and bad. But if you pull back and think about it, geez, why did that cornhead bring premium dollars on that guy's auction? Again, one is the guy. He's a good operator, clean farm. Everybody knows him, respects him. And two, there was an event. It was an auction. So if you were looking for that cornhead, you want this one? Well, today's the day, 10 a.m. Get your checkbook out. We'll see how much you want it. And that, I'm intrigued by some possibilities with technology, around auction, and as online auctions develop, I think there's going to be some cool little, what would you say, turns off the highway where you can create dealer events to, dip your toe into trying to, I don't want to say force the action, but basically force the action and do it in a way. It doesn't have to be like the old days where you'd have the physical auction, which is great. We love those. But with technology now, the way you can tell the story, I think of there was an auction we filmed for our TV show last November. It was where was it? It was in Barrett, Minnesota, which is kind of in between West Central and Northwest Minnesota. Steffes had the sale. Of course, they market really well. But they did something I think all dealers should do. They hired a young gal. Her name is, I think it's Bethany. She's sharp as a whip. And they just said, take your camera and go. Now, part of it is going to the auction day and filming and putting out pictures and video. That's all cool, which I like doing that stuff too. But the more powerful part is the preview part. So this was a retirement auction for Jerry and Connie Reese. Just, that local farm couple everyone likes. Oh, Jerry and Connie, they're great. Well, how do you capture that? Well, what Steffes did, they just empower this young gal, Bethany, and say, we're not going to tell you, just go talk to him. And it turns out that Connie she's one of those people, if you've never met, you could just sit down and you wind up talking to her for 4 hours. She smiles, she tells stories. So they had two quad tracks, Case H quad tracks on the sale. One was a 12 model, like 500. One was a 14 model, 550. They were nice. I wouldn't call them low hours. They were reasonable hours, but they were clean. and they sold for premium dollars, very high, like highest price in 4 or 5 years each. But the thing was, the preview video showed Connie standing next to them, talking about how she named them Molly and Dolly, and how on their 25th anniversary, she told her husband, he's like, well, Connie, I suppose I got to get you a new diamond ring. And she's like, screw that. I want a quad track. Now she tells the story with a smile. And you put that out 2 weeks beforehand. And then, of course, we shared it on our Machine Repeat social media. So now everybody's seen it. They all know Connie. It used to be at an auction, everybody local knew Jerry and Connie. See, that's the window. And you have, as a dealer, all these great customers that you guys have dealt with, forever. And you know what makes them special. So now social media doesn't cost a nickel. We all got these iPhones. They shoot video good enough for our TV show. Go out and talk to people. Go talk to that guy Fred that's got the corn head. And Fred, what was the first corn head you bought from? 21st century. Well, I remember that, blah, blah. Okay, when people see Fred doing that, that's a coffee shop. And it sounds stupid, but that's just real. And whether the guy's missing 2 teeth or he's missing a finger, it doesn't matter. It's just real. And it doesn't cost anything. So on the dealer side, the more we can find ways to work in these truths, it's powerful. So again, I tell dealers, I probably mention it, but you probably get tired of me saying it, Casey, but I would geofence here every location's top 5 or 10 customers and go out and get pictures and video in the spring and the fall. Maybe not this spring when we're underwater, but get video of them planting, get video of them harvesting. And then when they want to trade in that S670 in 3 years, guess what? You got video of that thing rolling in Scotts Bluff on a nice Tuesday afternoon, clouds in the background, whatever. That little snip of video, that's going to be money in your pocket as a dealer or an auction firm to put in the listing. Now it's not just 4 lines of text saying, here's what the S670 has. Here's Fred running it. You can listen to it and see it. So I think it's partly because I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all day talking to people that I start to see these windows, and it's like, God, let's change the business. And so there's whoever leans in first, and guess what? At the same time you do it, you're also, everything you put out has the name of your dealership on it. So then people 5 states away who don't know 21st Century or Midwest Machinery or, Central Illinois Ag, they're going to get a sense for, oh yeah, the Central Illinois Ag, yeah, they're good people. Well, why are they? Because you're talking to them, which is why would we not do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes a world of difference. Just those little things like that just kind of make a world of difference. So absolutely the pictures and especially the video side of it is very powerful when you start looking at moving equipment. Absolutely movement. Very, very important.
Yeah, I know logistically it's tough because, dealerships these days, like you got 10, 15, 25 stores and it can seem overwhelming. But I would say just start, just empower a young whoever. It's like our friend up there with Reister and Schnell, Dan Pate there.
Oh, yeah, Dan Pate.
He's doing it. Yeah, so Dan, he's just look what we have here, right? He's dipping his toe. He's starting to do it. So I love that stuff.
Yep, that's good stuff. So, all right, let's jump over to another topic here. When you start looking at inventory levels right now, stuff listed out there, I've been paying a lot of attention to this, and I've been tracking the hour ranges for specific, they're just a number of machines and groups of hours, right? So I've been watching this, and you're starting to see that the bulge of the just take combines or tractors or whatever it might be, but combines, for example, when you start getting into that 1,000, 1,500 hour combine over to the 2,000 hour, 2,500 hour combine, which primarily are 2012s and 14 model combines. There's a huge bulge in the number of equipment, a number of pieces that are out there on the market. My concern that I have, and I want your take on this. My concern that I have is I'm afraid as the market starts to heat up, and what we're starting to see that right now, we're starting to see some $4 plus corn in December, and July is knocking on the door of $4. As those prices start coming up, the folks that have those combines at 1,500 hour, 2,000 hour, 2,500 hour combine, they're going to want to trade that into a 500 hour or a new one or a 750 hour one, which there's not a lot of those out there.
Right.
Comparatively, we're going to see this big swell of those hour ranges of machines start popping up on the market even more than we already see. Do you feel like there's a sense out there right now that those machines are going to potentially have a popping of a bubble, and there could be some run to auction to get rid of these pieces of equipment?
Well, it could well be, Casey. I think you're right. I'm just looking now on our Machine Repeat website, and I see, there's pushing 1,000 S670s and S680s. So if you broke that down, I'm sure, the older models, like you say, the 12s to 14s, that's where, a lot of them are, and more drifting into that higher hour range. So yeah, then it can become a question of, I suppose assessing your level of inventory and, the age old, I guess that's the dealer business, isn't it? Do we try to get out ahead of it, or do we wait until something pivots in the market and then react? I guess the other thing would be, and again, I'm not a dealer, so I just try to watch this at a macro level, but, I guess discipline, when okay, here's our chance to take these couple in on trade. Now, do we? Because we have X sitting on the lot, 12 to 14 models. We'd like to do that deal, but does that discipline, does it carry over and be a little stronger than what we had back in, when the money was flowing? I don't know. But the truth is, exactly like you said, the people that they know what they want, and you know what they want. They want that 500-hour, lower-hour machine, and like you said, they're tough to find. I guess what I do is just, on the auction results side, maybe I can do it here while we're talking. So we got these little filters here. So I would just continually check, what's a 2012 S670 or S680? What are they selling for at auction? And then you can put in the hour ranges. So apologize for slow typing here, but I'll see if I can get in and do that. And then you can track it by, you can track it daily, weekly, whatever. And just look for that movement. I think movement is the key. Our prices going up or down. Okay, so let's type in 2012 to 2014. This makes for a great podcast, doesn't it, Casey, when I'm typing? We're talking. Okay, so hour range. What was your hour range that you kind of threw out there on these older machines that you're what's the cutoff you're looking at?
Oh, I think if you look at 1,000 separator hour machine to 2,500 separator hours.
Okay. So I think our filters go engine hours. So what would your numbers be there if you had?
So you'd probably be looking at
parameter.
I'd say 1,800 to 3,000. Okay.
Just type that in, 1,800 to 3,000, 2012 to 14, S670s, hit the little button. Okay, pops up. Now we got a little average pricing tool. Well, here you go. Last year on that parameter, which you just specified, 2012 to 14 S670s, 1,800 to 3,000 engine hours, average auction price was $110,050 with a range of 142.5 down to 86.5. Now, so far this year, through almost 5 months, that number has dropped to $98,082. And both the high and the low have dropped quite a bit. So the highest we've seen so far this year is 118,000 in this range, and the low is 74K. So to drop from 110, and this is really fascinating here because if you look, this goes back a few years. So there was quite a drop. It looked like into 17, early 17. The average dropped down to 118,604. And then last year kind of held, only dropped to 110. So that's not too big of a drop for a calendar year. And now this year, another 12,000 drop, which would be about a little over 10%. So then you'd have to decide, is a 10% drop year over year what I would expect on this class of, 2012 to 14 with that given hour range. But again, that's why we put these tools here, so that you can monitor this. And when you see a big drop or a spike, the flip side is if you see a spike in, 10-year-old pricing on, that a tractor everybody wants, a pre-tier 4, don't be shy about holding the price steady.
Yeah.
Because hard cash is high. So, but no, you're tracking the exact correct thing.
Yeah. That's another nice thing about your tool there. So you're looking at a a 12 to 15% year over year drop in just that average hour range of machinery, which shows you that either A, they're falling out of favor, or they're old enough now that they're kind of worth what they're worth, and that's just a natural depreciation schedule, or there could be too many of them in the marketplace, and it could be a simple supply and demand thing. So you can make that decision.
And the other thing that I'm watching is, people tease me. They'll say, "Oh, Machinery Pete, all you ever do is write or talk about the highest pricing." And it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously, when something like that happens, we talk about it. But I'm watching the other end just as much, so the lowest price. So in this parameter, the 2012 to 14 S670s with 1,800 to 3,000 engine hours, we've set an all-time low. That's 74,000. Now that dropped 12.5 from last year's low. And then now, so that. So then if I went and looked and say, "Oh, geez, why the hell did that thing sell for 74?" Well, I looked, and it was in Texas, Wellington, Texas. So then you could say, well, part of that might be the southern factory. You'd put your own, filter on that. But again, you can start off with a macro view and then take it down to the small view. Now, this is going to get really wild here through the rest of the year with all the water and the, who does pre-plant, who doesn't, and you got guys in Indiana that haven't planted at all, or Ohio, other areas are, looking good. Well, let's put a 2012 S670 up in Indiana, or conversely, let's see one in Minnesota. So geography's always been 30 years tracking this stuff. There are times when it doesn't mean much and times when it means a lot. Yeah. I think the rest of 19, we could see some differences there.
Yeah. Now I'm right there with you. I mean, the way the weather's painting out this year and the way it's looking, it is well, we had snow here on Wednesday.
Yeah, I saw that. Thursday. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids went the last day of school and in the snowstorm. You know what I mean? So it's crazy, so it's.
I know. How are attitudes out there, you guys and the farmers and everybody? I mean, yeah, you can only laugh about it, I suppose, but.
Yeah. No, I think for the most part, I mean, as far as planning progress goes, we're in good shape. We've got.
You guys are good.
We're in one of those areas where we can get a lot of rain and have it dry out pretty quick and be back in the field. Right. So for the most part, irrigated corn and all that stuff is definitely in. It's all in. Dryland corn's getting worked on here, slow but sure. But for the most part, it's all in. It's all ready to go. Things are where they should be now. When you start flip that around and you start moving east of us, and it starts getting a little. They're not nearly as. For the most part, they're in a good spot too. But the closer you get to Omaha, you know what I mean. The worse it gets, and with all the flooding they've had there in that area, it's just a bad deal.
Yeah, it's, now I'm a data guy, so I mean, I've always tracked auction pricing, but in a weird way, you can kind of turn sentiment into a data point. And that's, basically through Twitter. I think Facebook they got all kinds of issues with the way they've reined in. They're trying to make everyone just be friends and stuff, talk to your friend group. I'm like, well, that's whatever. But Twitter is an open flow, and Instagram is more that way. So when I'm on Twitter every day, I mean, I can feel it. That I'll see posts from guys in Indiana or Ohio or, Western Iowa or around Omaha. And, they're just dealing with a lot. And it's now we just had the government thing come out yesterday and trying to judge that with how many days do I have to plant here. And again, the thing for 30 years tracking auction, the truth there is, I mean, we're humans. So how you feel, how optimistic you are or aren't, matters, and particularly as these pieces of farm equipment have got so big and expensive. I mean, they're incredible what they do. Obviously, planters, combines, tractors. But 20 years ago, the highest price, whatever, it might have been $150K, and now it might be $375 at auction. And if you drop that into an area where people are not doing so well, now a lot of ways you can look at that. Of course, there's opportunity there as a buyer if you're thinking, geez, if it sells for 2% less, that's $350K. I saved myself some pretty good money. But that's just the stuff we try and track every day and hopefully help you keep sense of it.
Well, Greg, I think we've kind of covered everything here that I had on my plate. Anything you want to throw out there as kind of a last thought before we shut it down?
Just love what you're doing. It's great stuff you're putting out. Love it. It helps inform everyone. So
thanks, man.
Hats off.
I appreciate that. So obviously, if folks want to reach out to you, which they do on a pretty regular basis, and if you don't know how to find your egg on social media, you best be living under a rock someplace. But just for the folks that may be new to the business, how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to track you down?
Yeah, just type Machinery Pete anywhere on the internet. Take you to our website, machinerypete.com, or our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And I just want to thank all the dealers, all your support for what we're doing. And it's a great business. It's a tough business, but every day is a gift and a blessing. So we'll see what today and tomorrow hold.
Right on, man. Well, Greg, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and we'll catch you next time down the road, buddy.
Hey, sounds good, Casey. Thanks much.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Moving Iron Podcast, now part of the Global Ag Network. If you'd like to continue any of these conversations, you can hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. You can also send me an email at movingironpodcast@movingironpodcast.com. You can also visit the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel and watch Market Roundup with Chip Nellinger, Sean Hackett, and Angie Setzer. Also, Tax News with Glenn Birnbaum. Please visit movingironllc.com. Here you can find information, details, and updates for the 2019 Moving Iron Summit in Nashville, Tennessee. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can leave a review and subscribe at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and globalagnetwork.com. So until next time, let's go move some iron. This is Casey Seymour. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here.